Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, June 4th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Another day, another demonstration underway right now. This as hundreds of National Guard personnel stand ready at local facilities, keeping watch and the peace. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman at the scene of a downtown demonstration just getting started. Matt, what's the situation there?
Maya, protests are continuing tonight in San Diego over the death of George Floyd. I want to show you the scene out here. This is the corner of 14th and F. We are right near the San Diego police station. We're going to march with these protesters for a little bit. This protest being organized by this
Okay, we're going to try and get back to Matt a little bit later on. Meanwhile, 200 military police and other National Guard troops are in position at various sites across San Diego County. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh looks at their role and their necessity.
Thursday morning, military police from the National Guard in Long Beach stood watch over a mostly empty city hall and police station complex in La Mesa. The city had been the site of looting over the weekend. It's been mainly quiet as the week goes on, as it has been in most of San Diego County, as protesters and police have worked to avoid confrontation. The troops arrived without public notice late Wednesday night, catching even some La Mesa police off guard. County Sheriff Bill Gore requested the troops. He told KPBS Midday Edition he wanted to back up his officers.
By using the National Guard to protect infrastructure, that frees up our deputies to keep those demonstrations peaceful and allow us to address any detractors in the group that would create criminal activity.
Roughly half of the 200 troops will guard sites in La Mesa. The military police were seen carrying a standard issue M4 carbine, a lighter version of the Vietnam-era M16. Some Guard MPs also carried restraints, but Gore says they will not be tasked with making arrests. Gore says some of them may be used to guard the county building in downtown San Diego. At this point, others may not be used at all. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
A touching tribute today to the man whose death sparked the global movement underway. Family, friends, and national leaders turned out for the memorial to George Floyd. More now from reporter Daryl Forges.
Through song and prayer, the memory of George Floyd is honored.
Can y'all please say his name?
While friends and family celebrate his life.
I love my brother, man. We had so many memories, together.
His death inspired demonstrators across the globe to demand for racial equality and end police brutality.
No peace.
All 4 Minneapolis police officers involved with his arrest now in custody, charged in connection with his killing.
George Floyd changed American policing forever. And by that, the message has now grown to a nation begging for unity and healing.
The hope of lasting change is on the minds of many.
Seeking justice, seeking justice, seeking justice for the family of George Floyd.
As Floyd's family prepares to say a final farewell to the man they loved.
Everybody wants justice. We want justice for George. He's going to get it.
Daryl Forges, KPBS News.
Faith leaders gathered in southeast San Diego to call for reflection and public expressions of love. At last night's vigil, they also prayed that protesters across the globe achieve their goal of fundamentally changing policing in America. They said the killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police has brought America once again to a breaking point where people of faith must come together to push the nation on a path toward justice.
Officer Derek Chauvin ground his knee into the back of Mr. Floyd's neck and held it there for approximately 8 minutes while other officers stood watching. Mr. Floyd's appeals for help all went unheard. Likewise, the appeals of African Americans across America seeking redress for the extrajudicial murder of black people and gone unheard.
And over 100 people attended the event, which was held on the Martin Luther King Jr. Promenade at sunset. It's been a week of historic change in law enforcement in San Diego County. San Diego Police Chief David Nislight was the first to announce an end to the use of the carotid neck restraint by officers. Now, as KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us, law enforcement agencies across the county have followed suit.
The decision to stop using the carotid neck restraint covers every major law enforcement organization in the county. This graphic shows the names of the 15 agencies that have now banned use of the hold. But for some social justice advocates, it's too little too late. This reaction from a news conference held at San Diego City Hall today by San Diegans for Justice.
It's the lowest hanging fruit. It's the easiest thing to do. It is a quarter of a step. It's nowhere near enough.
Not surprisingly, that perspective is not shared by Sheriff Bill Gore, who still says the carotid hold is safe when done properly. But 2 days after SDPD abandoned the hold, Gore did too. He says the utility of the hold was outweighed by a desire to move forward with the community.
We want to progress, and I think that technique was stopping us from doing that, and that's why I discontinued it.
Protest works. That's the short answer.
Sid Martinez is an associate professor of sociology at the University of San Diego. He specializes in the study of policing, especially the use of force. Martinez says elimination of the carotid hold is an important first step towards serious police reform, but there's a bigger picture. Martinez contrasts the situation today to that of 1992, when violence flared in Los Angeles following the acquittal of officers who beat Rodney King. But these demonstrations have spread around the country and around the world, and Martinez says there's one big reason why: COVID-19.
It put all of us kind of in the same boat. And I think that's why whites are a little more sympathetic. They feel abandoned by the state economically. They see the injustice at the political level too. I think that we're seeing the formation of a new political and social consciousness. And if whites continue to stand up as allies, we could see a shift in some serious police reform and criminal justice reform, and also a shift in the color line and race relations in America.
A silver lining in a tumultuous time, a ray of hope for a society in pain. John Carroll, KPBS News.
And right now we're going to go back to KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman, who is at a demonstration downtown. Matt?
Maya, we are right now marching. We are on F, and this is 10th, where this protest is going through the streets of downtown. It started near the San Diego police station. Right now, it is going toward the North Park area. Now, this is a peaceful protest organized by the same youth that did this one that went through downtown just a couple days ago. Now, they have laid out some ground rules for this. They say they told everyone don't disrupt homeless people, respect the environment, no trash, no vandalism, and of course, they want to make sure that things stay peaceful. Protesters here saying that San Diego police have kept up their end of the bargain so far in terms of facilitating these protests, so they're allowed to walk through the streets. San Diego police chief said that he would do that, as you hear a bunch of cheering here. So they're actually blocking out these streets, letting them go down. I want to turn around though and show you one more time where they're headed. They're probably going to make a right at some point. Now, also today, San Diego City Council President Georgette Gomez says she's going to put a proposed ballot measure for an independent police practices commission on the City Council docket this month. Georgette Gomez says additional oversight would help build trust between communities of color and law enforcement. Earlier this week, the Mayor and Police Officers Association say they also support the creation of this independent commission. But at a news conference today, some advocates worry that officials might take away key provisions of the measure, like subpoena power or independent legal counsel. Genevieve Jones-Wright is Executive Director of the Community Advocates for Just and Moral Governance.
We need to put pressure on every single council member. This is not a partisan issue. This is a human life preservation issue.
Now, the public's going to see that proposed ballot language at the June 23rd council meeting, and obviously council members will have to vote on that. But people out here right now, they're still marching. We are near F and 11th. They're going to be marching all the way to North Park, and I believe back. Now, San Diego police are at the police station in force. They don't want them to get over to that area, but they're happy to facilitate these peaceful protests all they want here in the downtown area. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Now for the latest on the coronavirus in San Diego County. Public health officials are reporting 5 more people, 4 men and 1 woman have died from COVID-19. Their ages ranged from 38 to 91 years. All but one had underlying medical conditions. The county also reported 142 new cases out of more than 3,700 tests performed yesterday. This afternoon, San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer announced several more shoreline parks areas, piers, and boardwalks will begin to open as soon as next week. The unemployment crisis in America is getting worse. The Department of Labor says another 1.9 million people filed for unemployment benefits last week. More than 42 million people have lost jobs since the pandemic brought the economy to a standstill. The Bureau of Labor Statistics' monthly jobs report is expected tomorrow. A huge parade today in Chula Vista to honor high school graduates who won't get the typical graduation ceremony this year. More than 6,000 students from 13 Sweetwater District high schools were invited to participate in a drive-up ceremony at Southwestern College. Seniors got to put on their cap and gowns and show off their school pride and caravan in decorated vehicles. To keep things organized, students were given scheduled times based on their last names. KPBS congratulates all of them as well as all 2020 graduates. Cooler weather is making its way through the county and even bringing a chance of showers. Jeff Cornish has your forecast.
Well, we do have some big changes brewing here in our forecast for far southern California. The excessive heat warnings that have been in effect for the interior are ending, and we have much cooler air on its way for Friday and into the weekend. Now, with this next disturbance coming in with the cooler air, there will be some spotty showers in a few areas, mainly inland, and it will become increasingly breezy, especially across the interior as well. So excessive heat warnings that we've been talking about for much of the week in places like Borrego Springs and Points East are expiring, and that is good news. As we take a look at the forecast tonight, still 74 Borrego Springs, but 57 into Ramona, and we'll be in the low to mid 60s along the coast into areas like San Diego proper. Now, into Friday, we'll turn cooler out there, and you can see with this area of low pressure, we may have a few little sprinkles here and there in the city, especially later on. Better chance for actual rain showers in a few of the higher elevation areas into the mountains. So tomorrow, we're back into the double digits in Borrego Springs. That's great news there. The low clouds in the marine layer will be a bit more persistent with this stronger onshore breeze and this disturbance in the neighborhood over the next few days. And we're keeping an eye on that cooler air. Meanwhile, the Gulf Coast region of the U.S. will be watching currently tropical depression Cristobal over Mexico, re-strengthening probably into a tropical storm as it approaches the Gulf Coast region. But for us, we're looking at some low clouds and eventually perhaps a little bit of sun later in the day. But these low clouds are going to be pretty persistent tomorrow, and it will be fairly cool for the next few days. Maybe a sprinkle or patchy drizzle at times Friday night. And temperatures rise back into the mid-80s by Tuesday for the coast. Inland areas, not nearly as warm, mid and lower 70s. Even some low clouds making their way inland into the day Friday, then back into the low 90s come Tuesday. Mountainous areas, breezy into the weekend. The wind will be more active beginning Friday night. Desert locations, welcome relief from the heat. 88, not nearly as warm on Saturday, and we'll bounce back into the upper 90s by Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
San Diego's most at-risk neighborhoods saw an improvement in air quality when the COVID-19 shutdowns began, but pollution levels are already climbing back up. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says neighborhoods near the border and industrial areas face a persistent pollution-related health risk.
Sandy Naranjo noticed the difference right away.
Freeways open, we don't see traffic.
The Barrio Logan mom says the COVID-19 shutdown had an immediate impact on her neighborhood. Her observations are borne out by state transportation numbers, which found the stay-at-home orders cut freeway traffic in half in March and early April.
We don't see traffic, but what you do see is still goods coming through.
Goods coming through means truck traffic, typically the more polluting diesel engines. But the change is welcome for a woman who has suffered with severe asthma since she was 3.
I have noticed that the air has been cleaner, generally speaking.
San Diego air pollution was down 31% during the first 5 weeks of the COVID-19 shutdown. A California-based firm recorded significant drops in levels of ozone, carbon monoxide, fine particulate matter, and nitrogen dioxide.
No surprise, given, we've been seeing that around the state.
Melissa London is the chief scientist for the pollution monitoring firm Aclima. She says a rainy spring contributed to the cleaner air, but that wasn't the only driver.
I think we expected nitrogen dioxide to decrease and carbon monoxide, NOx, CO, because those are really those are pollutants that directly reflect combustion sources, for the most part.
Simply stated, there were fewer cars on the road because of the pandemic. Her company drove hybrid vehicles carrying mobile monitors on every street in San Diego's downtown and industrial waterfront since 2019. The firm also measures air pollution in San Isidro and Escondido.
We drive every street in that area multiple times over different times of day and days of week to get an sort of average concentration of the air pollution on that street, like outside your house, outside the school, over the time period we're driving.
The state pays Aclima to track air quality in California's most polluted neighborhoods. Barrio Logan, West National City, and San Isidro are among them. London says commercial traffic at the port's 10th Avenue terminal and the international border crossings still put large amounts of black carbon into the air.
Those communities in particular really didn't get that much of a break.
David Flores works with a national city-based environmental health coalition. The group fights to clean the air in those predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods.
We know that that research is pointing to the fact that these communities that have already been impacted by poor air quality are a higher risk factor for something like a COVID pandemic.
So those neighborhoods don't get the benefit of cleaner air linked to COVID-19 shutdowns because their long-term exposure to air pollution means they're at a higher risk for complications from COVID-19 infections. Flores says that's why local officials need to act. He sees a mixed palette of effort.
We're really excited and glad that the Air Pollution Control District and the Port of San Diego are starting to look for solutions, and we're working very collaboratively to find them. But we're not seeing as much advancement in for cross-border issue, as a cross-border issue, taking it seriously with health. And so that's a concern.
Flores says cross-border commercial traffic hit record levels last year, and it hasn't fallen off a lot during the COVID-19 pandemic. That means pollution from big rigs continues to impact at-risk neighborhoods like San Isidro and Barrio Logan. And Barrio Logan is where Sandy Naranjo is raising 2 kids.
You can see in my neighborhood, it's still ranked within the top 15% most polluted neighborhood in California. So that means my kids have a good chance of being diagnosed of asthma or any other disease related that's linked to pollution.
And the traffic that was reduced during the COVID shutdowns is already starting to come back in Barrio Logan, and that puts increasing pressure on officials here to find a way to reduce the overall pollution to keep the people who live here healthy. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
U.S. Navy veteran Michael White has been released from an Iranian prison after 2 years in custody. According to a family spokesperson, White traveled to Iran to visit his girlfriend in 2018. He was arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison after being convicted of insulting Iran's supreme leader. His mother filed a missing person report after he didn't board the flight he had booked back home to San Diego. Today, President Trump tweeted that White was being flown home to the U.S. on a Swiss plane. The San Diego VA is taking suicidal veterans off a life-saving drug and transitioning them to a controversial alternative promoted last year by President Trump. One local veteran has taken her life following the change. Here's iNews Source investigative reporter Brad Racino.
Ketamine has shown great promise over the past 2 decades in curbing suicidal thoughts among patients resistant to other treatments. The San Diego VA has referred dozens of local vets for ketamine treatment to the Kadima Neuropsychiatry Institute in La Jolla since 2017.
Ketamine is what makes me feel normal, and it's hard getting used to that feeling after suffering from depression for 30 years.
Navy veteran Larry McMinn suffers from depression and suicidal thoughts. He says the drug is a lifesaver. But the San Diego VA recently began pulling vets like McMinn from Kadima without notice and put them on a controversial nasal spray hyped by the president last year.
You take it, it's an inhaler, and you take it, and its results are incredible.
One San Diego veteran took her life after learning about this transition, and others are now threatening to do the same. The San Diego VA told iNews Source they've communicated with all the vets about why this is happening. But 9 veterans we interviewed for this story said that's not true. Emails we obtained between the VA and Kadima also show VA doctors didn't even know this was happening with their patients.
I signed a blank check for my life to defend my country. Now that I need them, they're not there for me. And it's not right.
For KPBS, I'm iNews Source investigative reporter Brad Racino.
If you or someone you know is considering suicide, call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. Here on KPBS, we will be airing a 1-hour TV special from the PBS NewsHour. It's called Race Matters, America in Crisis. The program will highlight deep systemic racial disparities in the economy, education, criminal justice system, and healthcare. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m. on KPBS2 and 9 o'clock p.m. on KPBS.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, predominantly peaceful protests continue as memorial services begin for George Floyd. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Now for an update on today's top stories. 200 National Guard troops are here in San Diego County. San Diego County Sheriff Bill Gore says he requested the Guard to protect infrastructure and will not be tasked with making arrests. Roughly half will guard sites in La Mesa. And demonstrators are marching from downtown into North Park this evening. It follows an announcement that San Diego's City Council will consider a ballot measure for an independent police practices commission later this month. San Diego County public health officials are reporting 5 more people have died from COVID-19. 142 new cases were also reported. This afternoon, San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer announced Mission Bay and boardwalks will begin opening next week. We've shown you how drive-in movies are making a comeback during COVID-19. Petco Park will be hosting one this weekend. Other forms of entertainment are also reaching people in their cars. Here's KPBS's Ben Lacey with more.
Curtains closed, marquees empty, lights off. San Diego is going on 3 months with entertainment venues shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some performers are finding a new venue.
Stand-up comedy is drive-up comedy.
Drive-Up Comedy was launched a few weeks ago. Jim Pine is running the show.
Doing an open mic is kind of crazy right now because nobody can do open mics, so we're doing one in a parking lot, and we're using an FM transmitter to transmit to everybody's cars.
Every Friday night in San Diego, the crew sets up in empty parking lots. It's a much-needed outlet for those who thrive on a live audience.
KPBS is here. You're not KUSI, right? All right.
Also, on unemployment and food stamps, guys, I am officially a state-sponsored artist, everyone. Thank you, yes.
Since the COVID shutdowns, many comedy clubs have gone online.
Those Zoom shows just aren't the same.
But Alan Henderson says a virtual performance can't replace the real thing.
It's just good to come out and see everybody. I mean, we're all doing it outside from a distance, so, you know, we're being safe.
It's not just punchlines that are moving to parking lots. Fist Combat, a local independent wrestling promotion, is doing weekly drive-up shows in Mira Mesa. One of the stars of the show is Dirty Ron McDonald. He was part of the drive-up comedy show the night before.
Wrestling and comedy both need a live audience. It's the entertainment is a manipulation of emotions.
The coolest guy in San Diego has arrived!
During the wrestling show, San Diego police also arrived.
I mean, they were basically like, hey, you know, somebody called and complained that there were people without masks. And I was like, well, I mean, I assure you that we gave everybody masks.
After a short conversation, the show went on. For the performers, a chance to socialize and perform at a distance is a needed mental boost.
A lot of the wrestlers and the people that came to the show were all like, this is the first time I've done anything in 2 months.
We've just let it organically build to what it's become. I mean, this is 75 comics signed up for this. I put 40 names on a list. It's just been like this moment when they can like take a breath again and feel not like literally. I get people that come here and they're a little nervous, and then when they're leaving the stage, they want to hug because they're like, I feel like a human again.
Drive Up Comedy plans to keep the format going even when comedy clubs open back up. Fist Combat streams their shows online and asks for donations for those who can't drive up in person.
Donate on the Venmo.
Ben Lacey, KPBS News.
You can find that story and others on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.